Rainbow Six Siege. The popular tactical first-person shooter developed by Ubisoft Montreal has had a rollercoaster ride in terms of popularity over the years. In this video, I will take a detailed and largely objective look at the rise, fall, and fall again of Siege's popularity, examining some of the key factors that contributed to its success and failure over the years. The game was initially released in December of 2015 and was met with largely positive reviews, with critics praising its unique gameplay and intense tactical action. This helped the game to quickly gain a dedicated player base, with many players drawn in by its innovative destruction mechanics and challenging gameplay. However, despite its initial success, Siege soon began to suffer from a lack of development and new content. Over the next few years, the game's player base began to dwindle as players grew frustrated with the lack of updates and new features. This was compounded by criticism of the game's developers for their handling of toxic behavior in the game, with many players reporting a negative experience due to harassment and other forms of in-game misconduct. One of the other key factors in Siege's fall in popularity was its introduction of microtransactions. In 2018, the game introduced a new loot box system called Alpha Packs, which allowed players to purchase in-game items with real money. While the system was initially met with some criticism, it quickly became a major source of revenue for the game's developers. However, as time went on, many players began to feel that the game's focus on microtransactions was detracting from the overall gameplay experience. Although, despite other flaws, the biggest flaw was just presenting itself. How long could the developers really keep it up? Just how many new characters, maps, and skins could they really add? There were already several characters that had already felt repetitive and so many skins that looked too similar. Although this issue didn't affect the game at this point in time, it would certainly become apparent in the future. Despite these challenges, Rainbow Six Siege managed to stage a comeback in the latter half of 2018. The game's developers worked hard to address player concerns and improve the overall experience, releasing a series of updates and new content that helped to reignite player interest. In addition, the game's focus on tactical gameplay and intense action continued to draw in new players, helping to rebuild its player base. At this point in time, people truly began to realize just how innovative the game actually was. There simply wasn't any other shooter on the market that played quite like it. Along with this, many of the seasons that came out during later Year 2 and into Year 3 simply seemed to be the most thought out and cared for seasons that Ubisoft made. However, in 2019, the game once again began to struggle, with many players beginning to report a lack of new content and a general feeling of stagnation. Year 4 would simply start a trend of new characters that didn't shift or change the game in any significant way. In addition, the game's microtransaction system continued to be a source of frustration for many players, with many feeling that it was too expensive and not exactly worth their investment. As a result, the game's popularity once again began to decline, and many players began to look elsewhere, such as Among Us and Fortnite, which were heavily gaining traction at this time. Rather than the game falling off all at once, it actually managed to keep a high player count, with its all-time peak being in March of 2021. Rather, the game would lose most of its attention on the internet and social media. However, despite its peak being more recent than people might think, it currently sits at less than a quarter of its peak, with much of the player base falling off in the latter half of 2021 into early 2022. It's also worth mentioning that Ubisoft never really recovered from making lackluster characters that failed to deliver any real substance. Unfortunately, this is where Siege is currently at in the gaming community. However, I have been a diehard Siege fan for the past 6 years, and I believe that there is still a chance that Siege could make a resurgence soon. As this most recent season, that being Year 7 Season 4, is the most expansive season, in terms of raw content, Siege has had, well, ever. Although unfortunately, it is just as likely, if not more likely, that Siege is already too far gone. In conclusion, the rise, fall, and fall again of Rainbow Six Siege's popularity can be attributed to a number of different factors. From its initial success and rapid rise in popularity, to its inevitable decline due to a lack of development and introduction of microtransactions, the game has faced its fair share of challenges. However, through hard work and dedication, the game's developers managed to rebuild its player base almost from the ground up. And although it's fallen far from its peak, despite its ups and downs, Rainbow Six Siege remains a beloved and enduring game that continues to entertain and challenge its niche but dedicated player base. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, why not consider subscribing? My goal is 400 subs by the end of the year, and it would really mean a lot if you subscribed. Also, maybe consider leaving a comment and a like on the video, as it really does help with the algorithm. Either way, I'm Bryce Still Standing, and this was The Unfortunate Fall of Rainbow Six Siege. Thanks for watching.